Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Disney Recess, the series review. This is part 2 because the other video got too long, so I'm gonna start off where I left off before. Randall Weems. We actually didn't find out his last name towards the end of the series, but Randall, as much as I hate him, you gotta like him because he's a recurring character that's funny. He is the villain of the show because he's always spying on everybody and snitching on them to Mrs. Finster. The thing about Randall is that he has no friends. And the reason why he doesn't have no friends is because one, he's really gross in appearance because he has a weird long droopy snout of like a mouth chin, and he's hunched over with a hump in his back. And he wears his pants sky high like Steve Urkel, and similar to that of Randall, but not as high. And he's always ratting people out. And he does that for attention. It's the only attention he gets from anybody, and he gets it from Mrs. Finster. He gets it in the form of rewards. He has immunity. He gets cookies and stuff like that. But he only rats people out for the sake of feeling important and that of attention because he is bad himself and he breaks the rules. He will even go as far as to blackmail somebody by writing like a fake confession and signing another person's name, or starting a food fight and blaming it on somebody else, or start like a food fight to where one of the kids knows who did it, but if they rat him out, then they would be a snitch and get bullied by the rest of the class and stuff. Or that time he pretended that Spinelli beat him up. I think he said she threw like a boulder at him or something, and it hurt him in the head, and he had a concussion. And he literally lied about the whole thing. And he lied because he hates the group of six. The group of six, just like everybody else in the school, hates him, but they go a step further by wanting to beat him up. TJ wants to beat him up. Spinelli wants to beat him up. Probably Vince as well. And so he hates them the most, but he will lie to his parents and say that those are actually his friends. He loves Mrs. Finster to death, and I mean to death, and she loves him back. Not in a gross romantic kind of way, but more like a grandson kind of way, but also in a slight romantic way as well, to where when the other person is hurt, they're almost bawling in tears and tell the paramedics, don't you hurt them and everything. They're precious. They're an angel sent from above and everything like that. We find out exactly why he is the way he is, and it's because of his parents. His mom is very much like Mrs. Finster, the one who rules over everything. And the father is exactly identical to him in every way, from appearance to the voice, to the way he acts, the way they hold their hands up. And his father is a spineless wimp who spies on the neighbors because his wife wants him to. Whenever something happens, he goes and tells. He even tells on Randall to that of Mrs. Finster. And one of his big solo episodes is where he found a joke book. And so, he started telling jokes, and kids around the school started to like him. And he kept it up until he ran out of jokes and didn't know what to do. So he did what most comedians do, and he picks on people telling jokes. And he picked on Mikey, making fun of his weight. Mikey didn't care, but his friends did. And everybody saw that as him being cruel and unusual. Another solo episode is when he teamed up with Menlo. And so basically they realized they could blackmail the kids around school. Randall spies on them, and Menlo uses, I think, either permission, what is it, punishment slips or something like that to enforce the rules. And because of that, they're able to get all kind of perks and even make that of King Bob do what they want. And another time, he literally became the king of the playground because he spied on King Bob and found him wearing a dress because King Bob's sister made him go shopping and wanted to see how the dress looked on somebody else and forced him to put it on because she was the older sister and King Bob will listen to an authority figure. So he blackmailed him with that picture and got the rule all over the school. But then came that birthday episode where, like, he lied to his parents saying TJ and the group are that of his friends. So he had to go to them and make amends and beg them to, like, help him lie to his parents. Everything worked until his father started to tell the secrets about how Randall and Spinelli are boyfriend and girlfriend, how TJ didn't have friends until like Randall gave him some pointers and a bunch of other stuff. This infuriated them to where his father later found out the truth and then told Mrs. Finster. But then, him and his dad reconciled and everything like that. But then is completely retconned as to why Randall is the way he is. When Gus tells a story in All Grown Down, which I will tell later on in this video. And that retcon pissed me off about everything. Because Randall and Gus are the ones who put everything in motion as to why everything is the way there is in the show Recess. Towards the end of the series, they decided to give Randall his own catchphrase, which was moist. And I don't understand why they gave him that gross catchphrase for. Hank. He is the janitor at the school, and he just kind of pops in and out of a couple of episodes. He loves cleaning up the school. It's like his passion. And early on in the first season, him and Miss Finster had a romantic relationship. And it was to the point where it irritated the kids because Miss Finster wasn't acting like herself and wasn't like taking care of the playground, and he wasn't cleaning up the school. So they broke up. He is also one of the nicest adults at the school, and it turns out that he's actually a mathematical genius when he solved that of Gretchen's equation that even she couldn't solve. Mrs. Grokey, she is the 4th grade students like teacher for the main 6. And she's one of the nicest adults there. She's an extremely sweet woman. Her ethnicity has made people like scratch their heads. Some people think she is Jewish, but she has tan skin. And I first assumed she was black because she had brownish skin and she had like really poofy curly black hair. But now that I think of it, she might actually be Indian, similar to that of like Guru Kid. But she is a hippie, that is for sure. Like she wears like this long dress, I think like a necklace, and I can't remember. She's either barefooted or wears sandals. And she has like these 2 buck teeth with like a gap and glasses. And she has hair stubble on her legs. Ooh, gross. But that woman is a hippie. And it's so funny because, like I said before, as the show kept progressing, Miss Grokey kept laying it down to like white Europeans, to that of the man at the government and everything, and oppression and everything. Every once in a while, she'll slip something out like that, which is technically messaging, which so many people nowadays hate, but it was back in the day and nobody complained and they thought it was funny. When these like, what are these people called? Something of education, the board of education came to the school to take away like all the fun and the playground stuff and all this and that. And they let her know who they were. She had a pissed off look on her face. She's all like, students, the man is here. Like, she cracks me up. And then she started telling the story of Beowulf and how there was this woman and he chopped off her arms and started to beat her with her own arms. Oh boy, don't even get me started when she talked about the white Europeans and the Native Americans. In her one and only solo episode that came very close to the end of the series and everything, or towards the end, I guess you could say, like the kids started to think she could be like a spy, kind of like a communist type spy or something like that. And so they kept asking her a bunch of questions. And one of the questions they asked her, "You think America's the greatest country in the world, don't you, Miss Grokey?" Miss Grokey straight up said, "No, Gus, I don't." Or maybe it was TJ, I can't remember. It might have been Gus. But she's like, "No, I don't, because other countries consider themselves to be the greatest, like many Scandinavian countries and stuff." Oh, like, holy crap. She legit went there and everything. If that would have been said today, boy, people would have been rioting. They would want the show canceled and everything. But they was wondering why she was acting so secretive and always disappearing and stuff. And what exactly was in that mysterious box? Well, it turned out she's a magician and everything. And she was studying her act at this like magician's club before she showed the students and everything. Principal Prickly. That's funny, he has the last name Prickly. Now, sadly, the actor who voiced him, Dabney Coleman, passed away. But he was able to like record all his lines for all the like, DVDs and stuff like that. He's a little bit of an antagonist for the most part. He just wants order. But the thing about him is that he hates teaching at elementary. The kids are too rambunctious. He wants older kids who are more disciplined and more mellowed out in everything. So he's always wanting that promotion to go to middle school, but he will exploit these young kids if it can like get the school some recognition or give him some recognition and stuff. His nemesis tends to be that of TJ, because TJ tends to clash with him every once in a while. Like I said before, Mr. Prickly tried to brainwash TJ by giving him a little bit of power as being like a principal for a day. Because of that, TJ literally turned on his friends. And he was trying to turn him into Menlo and everything. And so it turns out the dude's actually a huge fan of Senior Fusion, which is a superhero comic. A comic book character who's Latina. Boy, that would have pissed off all these angry people nowadays. But anyways, but yeah, even though him and TJ clash, they do have an understanding of like each other. And what was that movie called? Taking on Fifth Grade. When the Bureau wanted to like take away the playground and this and that, he told them, "Hey, look, this ain't my doing. This is their doing and everything. And there's nothing I can do because they are my superiors and everything." And he literally had to go to TJ's house because TJ literally would not go to school, and all the kids just decided to look at his house and look at him and everything as he like, would preach them and everything about how they're taking away our freedom. He legit had to like save TJ when he was dangling off the roof, and then he later sat with him on the roof, and they had a heart to heart to where he opposed the Department of Education. And so like also, if it turns out he has a brother, and his brother is always mean to him, and his brother has a school of elementary kids that's a heck of a lot better than his. And then they had both their schools square off in a game of kickball with that of the group of six. And it was funny because the group of six literally met their counterparts, people who looked very similar to them but were like different races or genders and stuff. Oh no, they race bent and gender bent these kids. Oh no. The wokeness of it all. People wasn't pissed back then, but they sure would be pissed now. Miss Muriel Periwinkle Finster, the true antagonist of this show, voiced by that of April Winchell. So I actually like this character. She grew on me. Now, she is made to be the monster of this show, a character that everybody hates and everything. But once you kind of understand where she's coming from, you don't hate her so much, especially when you grow up and you tend not to like kids yourself. She is probably the oldest person there, and she's been around since like she was in the military at some point, went to Guam, and is always reminiscing about her military days, talking about how she loves the smell of diesel in the morning, and like she runs the playground like a drill sergeant and stuff. Now the thing about her is that I've been wondering for the longest time, is she a teacher or is she not? Because of the simple fact, we only see her attend to the playground. She's there to make sure the kids don't hurt themselves and stuff, and they follow the rules. But then in the DVDs, we find out she used to be a kindergarten teacher and she became the new fifth grade teacher for that of the group of six. And so, like, but she just attends to the playground. Randall is her snitch, her informant and everything. She uses him to spy on all the kids to make sure they're not doing what they're supposed to, well, not be doing. And whenever a kid breaks the rules, oh, she punished the crap out of them, mostly taking away their recess or whatever like they like to play with. She hates the balls because she know the kids hates the kids love the balls. She doesn't particularly like kids all that much, always calling them vandals and hooligans and stuff like that. She is very strict and she is extremely mean. But they made her look like a literal, like the worst thing possible, every child's nightmare when it comes to a teacher. She's like over 6 foot tall, extremely thick, gray curly hair, glasses on those little ball chains and stuff, pearl chain thing, razor sharp teeth, cankles, and a huge hunch in her back and everything. She has bunions, she has corns. And so, like, the only thing they didn't give her is like a mole. She wears this really old-fashioned mustard yellow dress, I think with flowers on it. Like, you can tell she's very much an old, like, person and stuff, like a grandma. But she doesn't have kids of her own. And so the kids, they hate her to death. They pull pranks on her. They try to steal, like when she locks up the balls, they steal them. When they the teachers have like the good food, they try to steal that. She is constantly punishing the group of six. And like I said before, she loves Randall to death, even to the point of giving him immunity and stuff. And she actually had a romantic relationship with Hank, like I said before, but she also cares about Mr. Prickly because he is a stern man of order and everything, and who likes to follow the rules. So when he was about to leave, she literally bust into tears. But the thing about her is that she even had her own solo episode with Spinelli. Spinelli had been babysit, and so her parents chose Miss Finster. And so we get to see what Miss Finster does when she's not at school. She doesn't really like to watch TV that much, mostly like listen to the radio. She likes to go to the hairdresser, get her hair done, gossip, and get, as she calls it, a nice bunion scrub. She likes like, what is it, sardines and onion sandwiches and stuff like that. And she thinks that she's pretty hip and really cool, but Spinelli ain't feeling it. And it hurts her feelings because she's all like, has she gotten old and everything? Like the things she liked to do in the past aren't cool no more because she's from like the 40s or the 50s and stuff like that. And she actually knows Spinelli's grandmother, and she showed her a picture of those two hula dancing, not hula dancing, but yeah, I think it was like hula dancing when they was in like Hawaii with like coconut bras and stuff like that. And this made Spinelli kind of come around to her and everything. And those two actually bonded because they got to see where the other person is like coming from. So she's not entirely like an evil, mean person. It's just she doesn't want these kids to ruin their lives when they get older. So she feels the best like thing is to have like rules and order and to punish them when they do bad. Because she doesn't want them to be little criminals and everything. And technically that is what the group of six kind of sometimes are. They're good, but they're little rascals and everything. And even her and like Gus, they bonded because when Gus forgot his permission slip for the field trip, she told him, "Hey, look, you, me, and what's it, Grimwald or whatever his name was, we're the forgotten ones. You know, we're the ones that people forget about, and don't get to go on field trips and this and that." And even though she really wants to go and everything, she's a fan of wrestling, and like I said before, she loves men who are very like stern and militant and this and that. Now, the last time we actually got to see her was in the Lilo and Stitch episode when she was the chaperone for their little vacation thing. And she basically spent the episode getting massaged and everything in a really gross, horny kind of way. Talking about get that deep tissue and, ooh, you earned your tip. Like, ugh, so gross. But she's also the one who has to, like, if a kid rips their pants, then she will sew them up. But it's really embarrassing when, like, for the kid and everything. But she can always tell when a kid rips their pants. She says she can feel it in her corns and everything. But she is also the one who suspected Randall of like starting the food fight and everything. Even so much as to set him up just so she can get like his fingerprints and stuff like that. TJ is her arch nemesis throughout the entire series. Those two cannot stand each other. However, in that stupid retcon, it turns out that TJ isn't her nemesis, it's actually Gus. I hate this retcon so much, but let's get into the group of six. Mikey Bloomberg. He was voiced in the entirety of the series, but not in Lilo and Stitch by a completely different person. But in the series, he was voiced by Jason Davis. And his singing voice was Robert Goulet. Now, before I get into the second voice actor from Lilo and Stitch, first let me just say for both of these men, rest in peace. It is sad to know that both these men have died. The singing voice of Mikey, my God, phenomenal. I love hearing this guy sing. His last performance was in Recess School's Out. And sadly, when it comes to Jason, as the series started to go further and further, especially in the last season and in a couple of the DVDs, you can hear his voice change and stuff. And so they had to get a different voice actor for him in Lilo and Stitch, the series. But sadly, like I said before, both these men like passed away. Jason sadly passed away because he could not escape his demons. And if you know what that phrase means, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Zack Saida voiced him in the Lilo and Stitch episode. Mikey is a lovable big giant. He's the tallest out of all the fourth graders, and he's really the most peaceful out of all of them. He sees things very differently than the rest of his group, and he's willing to even give bad people like a second chance. He's not so much spiritual, but he's very philosophical and stuff. He loves poetry. He loves to sing. And just like the intro, he loves to eat. And that's the really interesting thing about the entire group. The intro really tells you who everybody is, and they show him as being a stereotypical big kid who loves to eat. But throughout the series, you rarely kind of see him eat, but then they have to kind of remind you that he does love to eat. Like in Schools Out, like he's constantly just eating tons and tons of food. But his favorite thing to eat is wingadingers and everything. And so the thing about Mikey is I love how they flip the script. You would think he's this big bully, but he's not. He has a very quiet, low, like raspy kind of voice, and he just loves life. He loves living things, and he'll even go as far as to protest and protect a germ. Why? Because a germ is a living organism and stuff in his mind. Even though they're singular cell organisms with no brains, no eyes, no this and that, they're still living in a sense. And so because of that, he wants to protect them. He isn't really ashamed of anything he does because, he's a boy and he likes doing things that most boys don't. Singing, dancing, he even took ballet. And things like that are very passionate to him. He's the moral center of the group that has to remind them of their humanity and stuff, even though they never want to listen. He helped Spinelli overcome her fear of dancing because Spinelli, is the tough one of the group and wearing like a tutu is not her thing. He had to remind Gus, germs are living creatures and you shouldn't try to kill all of them because there are some that are very good. And the thing, even though he's not a bully, there was one episode where he did kind of act a little bit bully-ish, if you will. Like when somebody was sitting down, like one of his friends, and they was looking at the easel, I think you call it, and what them things called, microscope. And so he wanted to see something, the germs, and nobody would let him. So he kind of just pushed his friend out of the way. That's really the only time you ever got to see him be a bully other than that one DVD. And even though he is the lovable one in the group, he's a little bit of the childish one too. When his mom told him it's time for him to start growing up, and I think time for him to stop playing with toys or something like that, he just kind of had a nervous breakdown and started to act like a baby and everything. He didn't want to give up this certain toy he had as a kid. And he wanted his blankie, he whined, he cried, he did the whole goo goo gaga thing. Like the dude literally had a nervous breakdown. And honestly, this is something a lot of kids kind of go through when their parents tell them, hey, your baby toys and your baby stuff you like, when you was a little kid, like say Barney or something like that, it's time to give that up. And kids don't want to have to give that up. Now, in one episode, he did have an identity crisis where Vince kind of saved his life. See, when you get towards the end of the series, they kind of start to recycle plot lines and stuff. Like the bully who saved that one girl's life from the ball. She started thinking he was a nice guy. Vince, I think, saved him from a ball. And so he started to idolize Vince so much that he just started to act like Vince. No matter what Vince did, he acted like. He even styled his hair to look like Vince, and Vince has a very black type hairstyle. He even started wearing the clothes. I am so glad they did not do blackface on this dude. I think if it wasn't a kids show, they probably would have tried that. And it was to the point where Mikey forgot who he was, you know what I'm saying? He even befriended a bully who goes around pushing his friends, and he even told her, hey, look, you're just a mean person because you go around pushing people. But they bonded over food, and he kind of had a little crush on her. He even had a crush on the chorus instructor because he has a very gifted, talented voice, very opera sounding, and it sounds like a grown man. Mr. Prickly Principal Prickly wanted to exploit that and make him this huge opera singer. And so Mikey was actually nervous about performing in front of people at one point, but something also involved him crushing on his teacher. And when she couldn't crush on him back because she's an adult, he no longer wanted to do it. And so she had to like encourage him that, he has a gift and he should like, share it with like the world and stuff like that. And what a singing voice that man had. I'm trying to think if there are any other. Oh, also, he has turned against his friends at one point. He's really good at soccer, being the goalie, because he's so big and everything. And something happened with his friends to where he was no longer on their team, and now he was on the opposing team. And of course, he let them know, I'm here to win it. Like, I'm gonna crush you and everything. Because something about them, they doubted him for some bizarre reason. Normally, when he's paired with somebody, it's normally Gus. And it was him and Gus when they became fifth graders that they decided, you know what? This little fifth, sixth grade club thing is nice with all the food and the games, and they're gonna stick with it and everything. We also see that even though he doesn't really care what people think, it still does affect him, like his weight. Like when it came to him being in kindergarten, he had to do that derby thing, and he didn't want Tubby to participate in it because of the trauma that he suffered from it. But what's interesting? It's that stinking DVD that retconned a lot of this and everything. Like, I'll get into that later. Like that whole Gus story, it just ruined things for me. Gretchen Grumler, played by Ashley Johnson, of all people. Like, I didn't really know who she was back in the day. She was in some show in like the 80s that was really popular. I forget, like a sitcom, I forgot what it's called. And I saw her in the very first Avengers movie. At the very end, she's the waitress. She's also the voice of Ellie from The Last of Us, the video game. And so I was really shocked to find out she's like Gretchen, you know what I'm saying? Because Gretchen, they look completely different. Gretchen is this tall, gangly, really skinny girl with pigtails, glasses, and two extremely huge buck teeth. I mean, those things are huge. They're like rabbit teeth and everything. And I love how she altered her voice for her appearance, because it sounds like she sounds the way she looks when she voices this character. Now, Gretchen, interestingly, the way she dresses is in a blue dress, and it's very reminiscent of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, especially the pigtails and everything. Gretchen is the genius of the group, and she's the smartest person in the entire school, if not the entire universe, with some of the things she is able to solve. And the thing about her, she loves to study, she loves to read. And it's funny because she'll create, I remember there was one episode, she created something. I don't know what it was, but it was something so advanced that she showed it off for her class. And then seconds later, the FBI came in, took a picture of it, and stole it. And she said that the FBI is always taking my inventions. That's really weird. When you see this group, she is one of the people who stands completely out. Like, it makes you wonder why this group chose each other, because they're also, well, some of them are also different from each other. For the most part, Spinelli, Vince, and TJ are the ones who are more similar to each other. But the other three are complete opposites, but they still accept one another. And thing about her is like, I don't know, like her solo episodes are interesting. They mostly involve like science or like appearance or something like that. Like, she became a little power hungry when King Bob wanted to make, like, a pyramid and stuff. She was the architect, and along with him, worked everybody like a slave and stuff. There was one episode where she started tutoring like all the kids in school, but instead of tutoring them, she just did their homework for them. And they paid her, and she was able to get this bike that she really, really wanted, but felt guilty that she, like, caused all these kids to cheat. So she gave them, I think she sold the bike back, and then I think she might have gave them back their money or something like that. She's not a bad kid whatsoever, but it is odd that she goes along with all, like, same thing with Mikey and Gus. Like, they go along with all these pranks and stuff like that. Because TJ's the one who comes up with them and stuff. In one episode, the Ashleys tried to give her like a makeover. And for whatever reason, they tried to change her, like, personality and stuff, but it just didn't work. Now, there was one interesting solo episode where, for some reason, she wanted to, like, learn, like, the yo-yo. And I forget why she wanted to have that talent, but she just did. And so she tried and she wasn't really all that great at it or something. And so she found this like older man who used to be a kid who was like a yo-yo expert. And so in the entire like episode, it was kind of like a Rocky episode where she learned how to do like all these yo-yo tricks, and she was amazing at it. It's one of the more funner like Gretchen episodes because everything else revolves around like science or something. But then there was this one episode that I will talk more about in February because it just really offended me and everything. And the episode had to do with her passing this standardized test that was going to make her graduate and go to like, I think like a grade up or middle school or something. And so she didn't want to leave her friends. And so what they helped her do was they like, hey, you have to dumb yourself down. And so every time she would try to like, they'll have her give her like an equation, I can't talk, an equation. And so she was able to solve it. So they're like, okay, you're not dumb yet. So they kept putting her in clothes that made her feel like, hopefully it'll make her feel dumb. And it didn't work. When she finally did become so dumb she couldn't solve something, she decided to dress herself to give off a dumb appearance. And that appearance was that of a Jamaican reggae person. So in the writer's mind, this is dumb to them. And this is what stupid people wear. Boy, I am offended. It was also her solo episode where we got to find out that Hank, the janitor, is actually a genius. So there's like this equation that even she can't solve. And she's missing just one piece. And somebody solved it when school was out. And so after spying and finding out who it was Hank. And she tried to get him to share his gifts with like the world. And the military, NASA, like a bunch of scientists and stuff, they all wanted this dude to build them basically weapons of like mass destruction or something like that. And he's all like, nope, I can't do that. I just want to be a janitor. Now, she also has this Palm Pilot thing that she created with a little frog avatar in it called Galileo. And Galileo is just like really cool and stuff. And it's like a straight up AI like thing. The way it has its own like personality and emotions and stuff like that. Now, even though she looks the way she does, there are a group of boys that just madly fall in love with her. And that's the Pale Kids, a bunch of nerds that idolizes her. And she had no idea and was very flattered by that. Other than that, she doesn't really do no girly stuff. Now, when it comes to Spinelli, we know for a fact she doesn't like doing girly stuff, but Gretchen doesn't like doing it either. In the Picture Day episode, she hated all these bows in her hair and stuff. It made her look cute. And so she doesn't like that. So she does have like some edge to her. But it was Gretchen that taught some sense into Gus when it came to germs. He wanted to go basically all Hitler on like the germs, and she had to remind him that some germs are good, like in antibiotics. Those are essentially germs that have been modified to fight off themselves and everything. Also, that of like dairy products and everything comes from that of bacteria. Vince LaSalle, and he is voiced by Ricky Deshawn Collins. And I didn't even know he's the voice of Tucker from Danny Phantom. That's just crazy and everything. And so, just like everybody else is a stereotype, like Spinelli's a stereotypical Italian, Gretchen's a stereotypical white nerd, Gus is a stereotypical like scaredy cat with glasses, and Mikey's like, kind of like the stereotypical big guy who likes to eat. Vince is the stereotypical black guy in the sense that he's gifted, naturally gifted in all sports, everything. He's the best like hitter in baseball. He can throw the balls really far in football. He's really good at basketball. He's the fastest like and when it comes to running. He's so naturally gifted that when he played golf for the first time and had no idea how to play it, he just watched a couple other people for a few seconds and learned how to do it within like a matter of like moments. This is so irritating because this is something that it's just a huge black stereotype where people think we're all great at sports and stuff. And I remember in middle school, the teacher, she was like our art teacher, but for whatever reason, she was with us at PE or something like that. And something happened where I guess these two people raced. A black guy and a white guy decided to race each other, and the black dude won. And she just looked at me with a big smile on her face, talking about like, y'all are really good at running and something like that. She said that was like over 30 years ago, and I'm just like thinking in my head, what the heck you just tell me? Like, because the reason why we're supposed to be so great at running because our slave ancestors were really good at running away from their slave owners when they escaped. I hate that so freaking much, and I hate that they made him the fast person and the person who's gifted at sports. But yeah, that's like his whole like thing. Like no matter when he plays sports, he's just really, really good at it. And but they do try to deviate away from that when it comes to that of his solo episodes. His solo episodes are really interesting to say the least. Like there's a first solo episode I believe was with his brother. And so he idolizes his brother, thinks his brother's like the greatest hero of all time. He's an older kid, talking about how great he is at sports, how great he is with the ladies, and everybody, and he has like a great like bike and all this other crap. His brother is essentially like Steve Urkel, the biggest nerd you will ever see. And when people looked at him, they're like, Vince, why do you keep saying your brother's all like this and that when he's just like a nerd? And Vince is like, what are you talking about? The dude's great. But Vince couldn't see what they saw until he started to really look at his brother and realize his brother is the biggest dork on the planet. And then he started to get irritated by that, because he couldn't understand why his brother, who he thought like who he idolized, was just like the biggest nerd on the planet. But his brother let him know that, hey, you know what I'm saying, like I like who I am, I'm like really cool in my own right, and all this other crap, which caused him to turn like, to see through his brother's like point of view. His other solo episode came with that of TJ, where it was kind of like they was doing this Hardy Boys detective type thing, and that was kind of cool and everything. Seeing them wear like vests, which changing up their attire, and just like doing this detective work kind of stuff. Something else I was gonna say, but I complete. Oh, TJ. When it comes to him and TJ, they're basically best friends and stuff. They've known each other, from what they said, since like first grade. But now, as because of Gus and that DVD, has been completely retconned. And there was a huge fight over who's TJ's best friend. I always assumed it was just Vince because they pretty much do everything together. But apparently, everybody else thought they was TJ's best friend as well. There was this other solo episode with Vince to where it was kind of like everybody in school saw this one movie, and the movie was like PG-13 or something like that. But of course, they went with their parents. But Vince's parents would not allow him to watch it because of all the adult humor and the stupid humor in it. And it's kind of like South Park in a way, kind of, you know? But everybody else kept like rattling off the jokes that happened in the movie. And he was the only person who didn't see it, so he didn't get none of the jokes. And even Randall saw like the movie, so he was determined to see that movie. He begged his parents, he tried to trick his parents, nothing would work. Then he ended up pretending to be like an adult, and that didn't work. But then I think like he saw Finster go in and it was all like, oh, you know, I'm like her nephew or something like that, and went in and saw the movie. And his parents actually, I think they caught him or something like that, and he got into a lot of trouble. But for him, it was worth it. So the next day at school, he went and started telling some of the jokes in the movies, and nobody laughed. They're all like, dude, that was like last week. We're into something completely new now. And so he did all that and got in trouble for like nothing. And that was actually a bad solo episode. Like, why is he gifted at sports and his solo episodes is either him judging somebody or like him sneaking into like a movie he's not supposed to go see? You know, I'm starting to wonder now. Other than that, I can't really. Oh, now I'm trying to think. So his other solo episodes, which you know, they pretty much have like one solo episode per season, and the other one was like he didn't like the cafeteria food, and he pretty much badmouthed it to the cafeteria lady. So they all like, all right, if you think you can do better, then you try it. And he did, and of course, because he's gifted, because let's not forget, slaves had to cook food too. He was naturally gifted at coming up with different recipes and stuff like that. Boy, this dude is a huge stereotype. Anyway, he impressed people so much that he created his own little restaurant within the school. A famous chef tasted his food and wanted him to go to Paris to work with him at this big time restaurant, which he was gonna do because he's always wanted to go to Paris. But his friends sabotaged it so he couldn't go. But then he realized, you know what, Paris can wait, and he can, like, you know, just hang with his friends. I mean, yeah, he's gifted at sports, but being a professional chef is like a huge thing. You can have tons of restaurants. So it sucks he didn't get to follow his passion because he just wanted to stay at 3rd Street with his friends. And I think his last solo episode was him and Mr. Principal Prickly. He was his golf buddy and everything. And so because he kept hanging out with Prickly a lot of people thought, oh, look at teacher's pet. You must get perks and everything. And speaking of perks, like, can we have some of those? Like, since I'm late for class, can you just like talk to your buddy Prickly and everything and get me back into class without having to go to detention? And so he's all like, look, it's not like that and everything. Me and him are not best friends, but Prickly started to cramp his style to where at first he didn't want to play with him. But then later on, he realized he needs to get over himself and not care what other people think of him. And so he helped Prickly win whatever type of tournament that they was doing. So Vince, for the most part, is a really cool guy, but the problem is he's a huge black stereotype. Ashley Spinelli, better known as simply Spinelli, and she is voiced by Pamela Adlon. And Pamela is actually the voice of Bobby from King of the Hill. I've actually only seen her act in live action once. She had her own television show. And so Spinelli is the tough one of the group. She's Italian, and she's a stereotypical Italian where they're angry and always wants to fight. She has her own catchphrase of, I'm gonna cream you. Basically, when she's pissed at somebody, that means she's gonna pound them until like creamy, like goo and everything. She always wants to fight, but I don't think we've ever really seen her fight nobody on screen except for like once. And it was like very brief. And so she has kind of like this sandy, raspberry voice. And her appearance looks very much like Pippi Longstockings. She has like the braided pigtails that go like side to side instead of drooping down. She has kind of like this red dress with like these striped like socks or like stockings or something like that. And she wears these giant, enormous black combat boots, which she revealed in the later season that she got them from her brother, but we've never got to see her brother on screen. And she wears kind of like this black leathery jacket on top of her red dress. Even though she hates being a girly girl, she still has to wear a dress because her parents make her. We've actually seen her with the dress on without the jacket, and she looks completely different and stuff. Now, because she is the tough one, she has to keep up appearances and always be tough. So that's why when like the Ashleys made her do that beauty pageant thing, you know, she was completely out of her comfort zone and she was able to win it by just being her typical tomboyish self. Because she is very much a tomboy. And it was funny to find out her real name was Ashley because we just always assumed it was Spinelli, but the other Ashleys found that out. And she loves wrestling. She said that she grew up watching wrestling with her father. But because of Gus's story in that DVD, that has now been retconned. That freaking DVD. And so, because she's so like tough, she's also arrogant and a little selfish. Like when it came to Vince's Lucky Charm, I forget what it was. It was like a quarter or something like that. And so she kept it because she felt like it was constantly giving her good luck. But it wasn't the coin, it was just her having confidence in herself. But when she lost it, she literally didn't want to tell him and wanted to move to like another country. But then it was down like a sewer drain where she was able to like try to her best to fish out. And even her friends tried to help her out. And what was weird is that inside the sewer drain was like a cigarette butt and a cartoon of all that, a kid's cartoon. There was also that episode where she had to take up ballet. And what was interesting about that is that she did not want her peers to see her and make fun of her. And so because of that, like she was gonna ruin the entire dance by not even showing up. But Mikey's like, screw it, he's gonna go and he's gonna do it. But I believe they had like a solo dance together, which he was not able to do because she didn't want to participate. But realizing that he is one of her closest friends and this means a lot to him, she sucked it up, put on her pink tutu, and went out there and danced with him. That tells you the type of person that she really is. When her friends are in need, she's gonna do something to make them happy and stuff, even if it makes her feel miserable. Now, there was one interesting episode where she accidentally called Mrs. The teacher, whatever her name is, Grumley, mommy and everything, which caused everybody in school to make fun of her. Why she called her mommy is still kind of like not really explained that well. I think just because like since she's the teacher, she's an adult, it just kind of slipped out, you know what I'm saying? And because she's so nice. But of course, this messed up her rep to where like she was ruined. You know what I'm saying? So, being her friends, they helped her out by also calling the teacher mommy and stuff. This caused the other kids to laugh at them too, to where the point where it just wasn't funny no more. Spinelli also has, like, when it comes to Spinelli, she also has the more deeper episodes when it comes to solo episodes. Like the time she was babysat by Miss Finster. And like she started to realize that just because a person's older doesn't mean they're not cool and everything. Because Miss Finster, she was young at one point too, and back in like the 50s and the 60s, they did things completely differently. And it caused her to see things through like a different lens. And also started to see Mrs. Finster in a different lens because she always viewed her as this like grumpy, boring old woman. And she saw that there was a heck of a lot more to her. Like, well, I think it's called hula dancing or something like that. Also, there was another deep episode where they made the kids, decide what they want to do for like career day. And Spinelli had no idea what she wanted to do when she grew up. And so everybody else, they was really good at something. Gretchen's really smart. TJ's like a leader. Gus is going to be forced into the military lifestyle. Mikey has his poetry and singing, and Vince is really good at sports. But what is she really good at? Other than just like being tough and stuff. So she really freaked out thinking she might not have no future and might be homeless when she gets older. But the people told her, and I think it was told her like, you don't have to decide things right away. You have time and everything. And that was like a really deep episode for a kid's show. Like normally you see that in like a teen sitcom or something like that. Now, she's also had her first kiss with that of TJ. Basically, something happened where somebody brought up like kissing. And then Butch told the story of, his sibling kissing and it caused the gray streak in his hair and stuff like that. So they needed to like, people to experiment with kissing. And it was TJ and Spinelli. Something they was kind of opposed to and didn't want to do, and they even had to dress the part. They put on their Sunday best and they just like kissed, and they realized nothing happened. Like they didn't get cooties, they didn't turn into like an alien or a monster or nothing like that. It's just something normal that people do. And in this one other solo episode had to do with death. So the hamster or gerbil, whatever it was at the school in their classroom, it died. And everybody mourned that little hamster gerbil thing. All except for her. She's just like, look, it's an animal, get over it and everything, Like it's no big deal, it's not a person. And so they had a funeral for the little thing. And it was weird. Like, not only did the kids who went there, from the class, like the fourth grade class, not only did they go to the funeral, but some of the older kids too, like fifth and sixth graders. Then middle school and high school kids started showing up. Then a bunch of teachers started showing up. And people who like work for like the government and the bus driver, they said he was their pet when they went to like elementary school, which didn't make no sense. It's like, how does people who are extremely old had this same hamster, and hamsters don't live that long? Well, it turned out that there's been multiple hamsters with the same name, and they have all died and got replaced by a completely new one. And so when it came time to put it in the ground, she finally started to see what everybody else saw when it came to that of death. And she finally showed like emotion towards like a living thing that died. Pretty deep for a kid's show. And just like a teen sitcom on Saturday morning NBC, she's embarrassed by her parents and did not want the other kids to see them for Parents' Day. So she hired a bunch of tough people to be her parents. And I don't know why she's embarrassed by her parents, but it was like a funny little episode where she lied and told the kids, oh yeah, my parents are like spies and this and that. But then it turned out at the very end of the episode, they really are spies for the government. Theodore Jasper Detweiler Jr., better known as TJ Detweiler. He is the leader of the group. And I know what you're saying. If he's like the main person of the show, why isn't he last on character bios? Well, I decided to leave that for Gus for a couple of reasons. Mainly because Gus is my favorite. And two, Gus's retcon that just completely pisses me off. So anyway, TJ. He is the leader of the group. TJ was played by 4 different voice actors. The first actor was from all of season 1 and a couple of episodes in season 2, Russ Malinger. So Russ is a former child actor and he's now quit acting. The second person, and my favorite TJ, is Andrew Lawrence. And he voiced him from season 2 all the way to season 4 and all the DVD movies and stuff. And he's part of the famous Lawrence brothers, you know, Matthew and Joey Lawrence. And they used to do projects together and they tend to like appear in each other like shows or movies, stuff like that. And actually, Joey actually voiced the substitute teacher that TJ got along with in later on in the show. I've never seen Andrew in live action. I've seen Matthew and Joey, but never seen like Andrew. But I know he's done some stuff at Disney, especially that one Disney Channel movie that was based on a true story about a blind high school student who became a wrestler. And you know what's weird? Even though, like, when it comes to some of these characters, they do try to mimic the artist will kind of mimic the voice actor's appearance sometimes on, like, you know, the characters they create for this show. Ironically, even though Andrew wasn't the first TJ and Andrew look very similar. But then the third voice actor to voice TJ, Miles Jeffrey, he took over as TJ for about 2 of the animated movies. Once you get towards like season 4, Andrew's voice started to drop and started to get very deep. And it was to the point where he could no longer talk fast and had to talk slow because to maintain that kiddish type voice. So they had to get somebody else. And they got Axel Alba. Now in the intro, we see TJ playing cards with a bunch of younger kids. And the look on his face showing that he might grift them and everything. And so, or like scam them or something like that. But the thing about TJ is an interesting character. He's a good kid and a good natured kid, but he has shadiness to him. It's like he's a bit of an anti-hero at times. He can go either way. For the most part, he's good, courageous, and all-standing like leader. He's the hero of like the show and on 3rd Street Playground and stuff. But he loves to pull pranks. And if you're an adult or like a kid who has wronged him, he will get you back. And he always feels justified in doing that. Like in School's Out, like he just embarrassed the crap out of Principal Prickly on the intercom pretending to be him. See, Gretchen had this voice modulator and he used it to basically give all the kids like ice cream on the last day of school and to make fun of Prickly and Prickly's voice. And Prickly straight up just asked him, why do you do crap like this and stuff like, and he's all like, I had to defend myself or something like that from what you did to me a long time ago. And then Prickly started to list off a bunch of teachers that TJ has like done bad stuff too, and he's all like, they had it coming and everything for what they did to me. So for some bizarre reason, he always feels justified in defending himself against these adults when he does really like crummy prank type stuff to them, like take Mrs. Finster's underwear and put it on the flagpole. So in a sense, he is a bad kid, but also a good kid. But his goodness outweighs the badness and stuff. But he feels, like I said before, that he is justified. Like his very first episode, he got detention in the cafeteria and could not go to recess because he didn't like the crummy like cafeteria food and felt like the teachers were hogging all the good food, which they kind of were. And so like he devised a plan to like sneak in and steal it from like, the storage locker. Well, he ended up getting caught by Finster and had to spend the entire like recess in the cafeteria, which causes his friends to try to break him out. But as they broke in to break him out, he found his own way out. And as recess was kind of like over, then his friends got in trouble. It really set up to show you how he is and how they will do anything for them and how he will do anything for them. And he will do anything for his friends. When Mikey ripped his pants and they were trying to find different solutions to like, to prevent Finster from finding out and give him a new pair, by creating a new pair, he just decided, what, all us guys just need to rip our pants and that way we can all get laughed at along with Mikey and stuff. Same thing with Spinelli when she called Miss Grumley like mommy, so he just had everybody in the class do the same thing, which caused everybody just to laugh at each other. And that's the kind of person TJ is. He will do anything, and I mean anything, for his friends, even if it means embarrassing himself. But he's also very, very lazy. All his friends at some point became his lab partner. And so he just makes volcanoes every like time. And it's to the point where, he just doesn't put no effort into it until he had Gretchen for like a partner. And he saw how dedicated she was to wanting to get an A, and she didn't want to slide by and get like a C or a D with just another like volcano project. And so it was actually to the point where he realized he needs to shapen up and do this for Gretchen, and spent all night making a really, really good like project and stuff. Finster is his arch nemesis, along with Randall. He cannot stand those two, and he tends to take out a lot of his like prank and frustration out on her. But we never really get to see it on screen that much. Mainly, I think it's because they don't want to show TJ in like a bad light. Because the thing about TJ is that, because he is surrounded by a group of great friends, and he likes being a hero, he could very well be a villain if he wanted to, and a mastermind villain at that. But then they show him every once in a while going up against Principal Prickly, to where those two like, found out that they have like a love for the same comic book hero, Senior Fusion, which both of them are like diehard fans and can tell you anything about that superhero. Now, there was that one time where the entire group kept fighting with one another because they wanted to know who TJ's best friend was, and they wanted him to pick. But he told them, look, I don't have one best friend, I have 5 and everything, and that's good enough for him. Because he doesn't want to have to like pick against one another because he sees them all as family. He has a deep love for like his group of like 6 and everything. That is like his family. And the thing about them is that, he added Gus into the group. He realized Gus was like a new kid and didn't have no friends. And he wasn't going to let this dude spend the entire school year not having friends and not playing with people. TJ's whole purpose in life is to play. He loves recess, and when you get in the way of his recess, this is when he protests. TJ is all about freedom and liberty and kids expressing themselves. And when you get in the way of that, then like he will literally rally the entire playground to understand where he is coming from and how they have to oppose the adults and everything. When I say he's not only a leader of his group, he's a leader of like people all over and stuff. The playground respects him, but there are some that hate him, like the Ashleys, Randall, Lawson, and the bullies and stuff. But everybody else respects him, and when they have a problem, they come to him because he is the idea guy, even though Gretchen is technically the smart one. And we've seen in the episode where Gus ended up getting hurt because of one of his schemes. He wanted him to sneak into like the Ashley's clubhouse. But the clubhouse collapsed and fell on top of Gus, and I think it hurt his arm or something like that. So because of that, he didn't want to be the leader no more. And because of that, like the other like members tried to be the leader, but realized they just aren't TJ and everything. They can't function without him. And so TJ is that stereotypical white savior. Even though some fans think he might be Jewish and stuff. Now his appearance is kind of cool. He's hefty and everything. He's not skinny. He's a big kid who wears a green jacket all the time and a backwards red cap. He does not like going nowhere without that red cap, and you are not allowed to touch it. But he did end up becoming a hustler at one point in time. There was also this one time where it's kind of like these kids had like these Pokemon, Magic trading cards or whatever, Dungeons and Dragons, and everybody had them but him. He just had some rinky-dink stickers and everything. So he realized he had to get some cards and start trading them with other people. So this is exactly what he did. He made a business out of it. Basically, he would trade his for other ones starting off small. Then he would have kids start working for him. And eventually he became a mob boss and everything. And it was to the point where the kids were no longer into those cards. So now he had tons of them and couldn't get rid of them. But there was that one time where like he became principal for a day. And he actually turned on like his friends and everything, and because he went mad with the power, but realized this is not what he wanted. He started to become like a tyrant. He started to become the fenster and prickly of the group. Trying to think of there other than the prank episode, which I already mentioned and stuff. He's really good at pranking people with King Bob, this and that. Oh, the whole him and the whole recess thing. We've seen what happens to him when he can't go to recess. Like he goes mad. Like he just goes crazy along with the other kids whenever they can't go to recess. He becomes sad, he becomes depressed, he becomes defiant and everything. Like in the raining episode, they couldn't go to recess because it basically rained the entire week. And so, like, it got to the point where he's like, screw it. I don't even care if I get sick in the rain. I'm going to go and play and everything. And he convinced the other kids to play in the rain. And of course, everybody ended up getting like a cold and everything. But that's how defiant he is because nobody will stop him from like playing. And something else, there was another episode where, the Pale Kids and everything, where he hurt himself and he basically had to go with the Pale Kids. And this caused him to have a better understanding of other kids that are different than him and that he shouldn't judge them just because of their appearance or the way they act. Gee, could that be messaging? I think it is. And everything. And if people wasn't pissed back then, they should not be pissed right now. There was also something else about him. I forget what it was, but like, it was something else that he did that was really spectacular. but I can't think of what it was. Normal. Oh, his catchphrases. So basically, he has two catchphrases: Tinder, which just sounds gross, and Womp. Womp is basically his cuss word. So to prevent himself from cussing, he just made up a word. And it was kind of interesting because at first it just kind of came out of nowhere and he just kept saying it. And us viewers had no idea why he was saying it. Then they finally had to explain what it meant. And so this caused other kids to say it, and he got in trouble for it. To where the school board literally wanted him to go to like juvie or something like that. And they had to remind him that WOMPs is not new. It's something they created when they was younger as well. And because they had to remind themselves they used to be kids as well. Just like when TJ decided to have him and his friends hang on a giant statue when it was going to be unveiled. And this pissed off like the descendant of that statue and stuff. The person who created 3rd Street. I think it's Thaddeus something the third or something like that. Only for them to be reminded when the adults were kids, they hung off that statue as well. And the thing about TJ, like I said before, is he is a bad kid and a lazy kid and a person who pulls pranks and a person who wants revenge. But it's weird because deep down inside, he's like one of the best kids because he's like an all standing, all around, good hearted, natured person. Gus Grimwald. He is my all time favorite of the bunch. And he was voiced by two completely different people. Throughout the entire series, he was voiced by Kirkland Mead. And you can tell by season 4, his voice started to get deep, and especially in the DVDs. But he was voiced in Lilo and Stitch by Zach Ewig. And so Gus is the new kid at school. He's a 4th grader who's really, really short with spiky blonde hair, like a buzz cut type thing, because his father is very militant. And that's how they like run their house and everything. Since he is the new kid, he's been in like 12 different schools in the past 6 months. They never stay in one place too long. But 3rd Street Elementary is the longest school he's ever been to. And so because of this, he feared that he would have no friends and stuff. He appears actually in the 2nd episode and not the 1st, but he's in the intro in the 1st episode. So when you see it, you just kind of assume it's just this random kid, but then why is he hanging out with like the group of 6? You know what I'm saying? And since he's short and his pants are way too high up and he has a button-up shirt like a Poindexter, he gets bullied a lot. And I mean a lot. He's the coward of the group and he's the one who whines and complains. But the interesting thing about him is, like I said before, since he was the new kid, TJ and the others just accepted him for who he is. And for the first time, he had friendship, you know? This is something he's never had. He's never had like a summer vacation where he gets to have like all these adventures with his friends or Christmas adventures and stuff. And to him, this is the greatest experience he's ever had in like the world. To have friends. And you know how it is when you're younger and you go to like a new school and you're afraid you're not going to meet nobody, and then you finally do. You know, you feel accepted and everything. And with him being a complaining, whiny person and everything, he's not always like that. Like, Gus is actually a tyrant deep down inside, which is really interesting in his solo episodes. His solo episodes is mostly him going mad with power. Like when King Bob made him king for a day, he legit turned into a tyrant. Then when he thought his parents were gonna like move, he was defiant and not gonna leave, so he decided to live on the playground and stuff. Kind of like Hugh Hefner with a bachelor pad, where he just wanted to party all day and all night. But he was even to his friends all like, look, man, we gotta like go home and sleep and we gotta like study and stuff like that. And then there was something else. It was this episode where TJ and Vince gave like haircuts to the kids at school. Stupid, ugly haircuts. But everybody thought they was like the coolest. And Gus was like the person making the appointments. And Gus was just being as rude and snobby as ever. The dude also, when he found out about germs, became Hitler, wanted to destroy all germs and rallied a group of kids at school and even the adults around town to help him disinfect the school, and he wanted to disinfect the entire world. Like, I'm like, holy crap. But the thing about Gus is that even though he's this short kid who always gets picked on and he's scared to do anything, he will stand up for the little guy because he's little himself. And so when kids are like in first grade or kindergarten and he sees them getting picked on by much bigger bullies, the dude just loses it and becomes like this really angry person who will not only stand up to the bully but push them down, or take or like, you know, in the form of the, what was it, the dodgeball episode, pound the crap out of them with like balls. But he will get physical with like bullies who normally he would run from and everything. And that's because he hates being picked on and he knows what that like. So he's willing to fight for the little guy even if he gets like a black eye for it. And it shows you just how tough deep down inside he is, and he would never become that way if it wasn't for his friend and also his military father. Now, in his or the first episode he appeared in, the second episode, he lost his name. Because he's the new kid, King Bob has named him New Kid. And the former New Kid now gets his old name back. And Gus hated this crap. So with the help of his friends, he was able to regain his actual name. And former New Kid became New Kid again. Oh, the dodgeball episode was just like insane. Basically, at his old school, he was called Diablo, which is devil in Spanish. And they literally tell you it's devil in the Spanish. He's basically a master at dodgeball. And because of that, like he hung up like his like throwing arm and his balls and stuff until he saw a kindergartner getting almost hit by a ball. Or actually, he did get hit by a ball on purpose. This unleashed the beast in him, and he put back on his outfit, his Western outfit, and played dodgeball like nobody's ever seen him play before. And he took down those fifth graders and stuff with just red rubber balls. And it was that picture episode that caused Gus to be my favorite. And I've already reviewed that episode. Basically, the kids have to stay clean until they're the last ones to take their pictures. And it's just him and TJ left that are still clean. And here comes Lawson ready to throw like a mud pie at them. And TJ stood up for Gus and told him, you know, just stay clean, Gus, and I'll handle this. Knowing TJ was going to get pelted by mud, Gus couldn't let him do that. So off screen, it was TJ who stayed clean and Gus took the mud and everything. Because he knows that TJ always has his back and he needs to return the favor, and it's time for him to man up. However, they completely ruined this show for me and Gus by the DVD Recess All Grown Down. This was the second outing for them after the fourth grade. So they're in the fifth grade now. And this came out after school's out, and I think that Miracle on Christmas or 3rd Street something DVD. And so basically in this DVD, they told the story of like, you know, I guess like them not always getting along. It had something to do with kindergartners, I know. Basically, the kindergartners kidnapped the group of 6 minus Gus. And so they couldn't figure out how they were going to get out of it. So they just basically reminded the kindergartners how they've always helped them out and everything. And so it's a compilation of like other episodes. And so when it comes to Gus, it's a completely new story. And Gus tells them of how he came to Third Street Elementary, not in the fourth grade, but in kindergarten. And in kindergarten, everything was completely different. Kids used to dress normal and act normal. And they were scared of Mikey. Mikey was the tallest one and a bully. He was only a bully because Randall lied to him and say, you know, the other kids make fun of you, so you have to be mean to them and stuff like that. Even Finster was nice back then. So Mikey used to be rude and nasty and mean. Gus was actually the wild child who dressed like a stereotypical savage. And I think it was Gus that found out that, you know, Randall was the one lying and stuff. So he told Mikey and this and that, and Mikey started to be nice. And then the other kids, they was all like playing and having fun. Like, what's that? So here comes Gus teaching them how to have fun. So basically, this is when all the kindergartners started to dress like stereotypical, like, you know, indigenous people and face paint and going wild and crazy and wanting to be cannibals and stuff like that. It's because of Gus that Vince and TJ like became friends, even though they had the same class. It's because of Gus that Spinelli learned how to be tough and learned how to wrestle and everything. I forget about like Gretchen. I forget how he helped her. And it also caused Finster to be mean and have like a vendetta against Gus, when technically she has a vendetta against TJ in the entirety of the series. Everybody thought Gus was making this up. They all like, this isn't true. We don't remember this. And he's all like, nobody remembers anything from their kindergarten years. But why does he? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's the only person who apparently remembers this. This completely retconned the entirety of the series because Gus literally didn't show up until the second day of fourth grade. Or at least somewhere in the fourth grade. And I'm just kind of like, so he literally showed up in kindergarten for one day at 3rd Street because his family was stationed there for one day, and then all of a sudden, the next day, they had to pack up and leave. I'm sorry, this don't make no sense whatsoever. And he's the one who taught everybody to be themselves, and he's the one who helped Vince, like, I guess, like, be good at sports, and TJ to make friends. Oh no, and Spinelli to wrestle, like. And this is why Finster turned like mean and evil and everything. And so, like his friends, I assumed this was just a made-up story as well. Until at the very end, an older Finster from now in 5th grade, their 5th grade teacher, she said, you know, one day I will get that Griswold and everything. Mark my words, boy, I will get you. Letting everybody know, yes, this is now new canon. And I just feel like it completely ruins everything we knew about like these kids and stuff like that. And that is Gus, this scaredy cat militant boy, who's actually was as wild could be back in kindergarten and taught all the other kindergartners how to dress and how to act and wanting to eat people and stuff. No. Recess, school's out. And so basically, this is their first theatrical movie that came out in about 2000 or 2001. Now, what's weird is that all the kids' voices sound pretty much the same, which is weird because they started to go through puberty in the last season and their voices started to drop. This movie had mixed reviews. You know, I don't know what is up with Disney. Every time they make a television show that's really cool, they'll make a theatrical movie that doesn't do too well. Now, for the most part, this movie is similar to that of Recess the show, but also different at the same time. They had to do that for a general audience. And so basically, the story is 4th grade is now over. King Bob is going to middle school and put Freddie in charge. And it's summer vacation now. 2 months of them just getting to play. At least that's what TJ thinks they're going to get to do. But all his friends are actually going to different types of camps in the summer. Even some of the other kids that he's not friends with, like the Ashleys, are going to cheerleader camp. Vince is going to baseball camp. Gretchen science camp. Spinelli wrestling camp. And Gus is going to military camp. So he's really bummed and like depressed. And he's just riding his bike around town with nobody to play with. And so basically he sees these like black ops government men do some weird like experiment type stuff at his school. It's always this flashing green light. So he spied on them and he went to his parents and nobody would believe him. He went to the cops and nobody would believe him either. I hate how they portrayed these cops. The only two black cops we've ever got to see, and they're just making fun of him and not taking this seriously. And they both had to be black. And so nobody will literally believe him. So he sees Principal Prickly playing golf. And so he goes and tries to get his help. Prickly doesn't want to help him because TJ literally made fun of him the last day of school and also gave all the ice cream that Miss Finster was going to sell to like the kids at school. But Prickly decides to go and see, but sees nothing's going on until he sees the flash of light. After that, Prickly gets hit by a laser, and all you see of him is like his shoes that have been melted. Freaked out, he decides that if nobody's going to help him, he needs to get his friends, but they're all at camp. So he bribes his sister, a sister we've never seen before, or never mentioned before. We know he has an older brother that we never got to see. And so he bribes her by stealing her diary and making tons of copies and gonna give them out to kids at school. So she drives him all around like the different states to all these different camps to gather his friends. His sister is voiced by Melissa Joan Hart from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Now, when we see her in taking on 5th grade, she's now voiced by Tara Strong from the Powerpuff Girls and Timmy, what's that thing called? Fairly Odd Parents. What's interesting is both Melissa and Tara are actually really good friends. So after gathering his friends, they see Prickly just being Prickly. And they're all like, dude, you lied to us. Until they start seeing the flashing green light. So what happens is there's a brand new villain who works for like the government or the Board of Education or something like that. And he has a tractor beam and he wants to move the moon. It turns out the backstory of him is that he went to school with Finster and Prickly, and he had a huge crush on Finster when she was a teenager and stuff. And it's really cool to get this backstory because we never got to see them truly as like teens and adults and stuff like that. After they graduated, he was supposed to be the new principal at 3rd Street Elementary, but he wanted to take away recess. And when he did, this caused the parents to protest, and then he got fired, and Prickly became the new principal. And Finster didn't want to leave with him and wanted to stay with Prickly and run the school. So this caused him to have a vendetta, and he's played by scumbag actor James Wood. Even though James Wood is a horrible person, that man can do some voice acting. And so because of this, he just had revenge in his heart against Prickly, who he kidnapped, and Finster, and Recess, and all this other stuff. He wants to eliminate summer vacation so that the kids can't play, and of course he wants to get rid of Recess. After finding this out, TJ and the others, they get like a group of like kids from the school and the teachers to take on all these military dudes and everything, these black ops military people. And of course also ninjas too, because for some reason this evil dude has ninjas. And somehow they're all able to beat a group of kids, and older teachers are able to beat military officers. That don't make no sense. Now, his whole plan of wanting to get rid of summer vacation, he wants to take the tractor beam and push the moon completely so far away that Earth is no longer in its orbit. Because, and stuff like that. And that don't make no sense either. How is that supposed to get rid of summer vacation? I guess that's supposed to sped up time or something like that. It's a weird, far-fetched story. Yes, weird stuff does happen in this show, like Santa Claus being real and Gretchen creating some weird device, but we never get to see her create it and stuff. But for the most part, this show is pretty grounded and set in realism. So this movie is very, very, very far-fetched and everything. And so, what the movie should have been about, if they really wanted to keep to the true nature of Recess, is show what it's like for TJ to constantly be bored during the summer without his friends and not being able to play, for his friends to finally come back and to show that they've like changed and everything. They got new friends, and how did this affect the social circle and everything. And that should have been the movie, but that would have been too boring. Now, one problem with this movie, it's been done before. Like, we've seen them, what happens when their recess gets taken away from them. That's happened in every season, like in one episode. And we've seen these adult officials who work for the government take away their recess and stuff. So it's just rehashing the same plot in just a different way. Then comes Recess taking on fifth grade. We finally get to see them, be in the fifth grade. Miss Finster is their teacher. TJ thinks he can, woo her and everything, so she won't have to be so mean to them, which is something we've seen in the past, so it's another rehash storyline. And everything is taken away from them. Their lockers that they finally get to get, the good cafeteria food, and their entire recess playground has been completely taken away from them, which is another rehash episode. This causes TJ to get pissed at the Department of Education. And once again, he's going up against one of his adult villains from a past season. He refuses to go to school. The kids refuse to go to school because they just want to watch TJ sit at his house and everything. And he's basically protesting. This is literally a completely rehash episode for which is supposed to be the final outing of the Recess kids. It's literally been done before. Just in other episodes, they just cut those other episodes up together and made this brand new thing. Now, the animation has changed with all these movies and DVDs to where it looks like the final episodes of season 4, but better drawn, and they actually have shading now. It's very reminiscent of those Ultimate Avenger movies from Lionsgate. But then this DVD is a combination of 3 short stories. There's that Halloween episode that I reviewed years ago. And then there's a brand new thing with King Freddy and how he's a tyrant and how there's now a 5th and 6th grade club. This is interesting and new and should have been the entire focus of the entirety of this movie, but they decided to make it into a 3-part cartoon episode. Then came the Lilo and Stitch episode Lax, which has to do with experiment 285. Basically, this experiment likes to make people relax and have fun to where they don't take on nothing important. All the main characters are relaxed, and the only ones left is that of Gus and Lilo, I think. Everybody else is under his effects. And so Hamsterville, or whatever his name is, has a giant satellite in space they have to get rid of. And when they zapped that of Gretchen, they realized that even though she likes to have fun and relax, it's just being a nerd and read and do fun stuff. So they're still able to defeat the bad guy. And when they zapped her Palm Pilot, Galileo, it also affects technology. So that's how they're able to affect the satellite in space. It's a weird episode that kind of just doesn't make no sense. And for now aliens to exist in the Recess universe. Now, why exactly are they in Hawaii on vacation and stuff? Well, Gretchen got some type of reward thingy where she had to go to Hawaii and they all decided to go with her, with Finster chaperoning, but all Finster does is just get a massage. And that is the entirety of the Recess saga and everything. It would have been cool to see what they're like as they're older. I wanted to really see how they act when they're in the 5th and 6th grade, but they just act exactly the same. And it would have been cool to see them in middle school or high school, but then, of course, there is no recess in middle or high school and stuff. Now, there was supposed to be a revival in 2022, one of the creators said, but this process is going very, very slow. It's no longer 2022, it's now 2025. So most likely this revival will probably never happen. And if it does, it will probably be on Disney Plus and they'll probably ruin it. But you know, Recess was an outstanding cartoon. It wasn't a cartoon. It was real life. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.